Esteban Blanco is the Chief Geek Officer at Blanco I.T, and he joins us this week to break down news from Datto, HP, and talk about why this year might just be predictable, plus a special guest interview with PAX 8's VP of Academy, Rex Frank, on post-exit planning. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 211, Rocking the Rolodex. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly episode 211. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine show for people like you. And who are you? You might know who you are. You've known yourself a while, but if you don't know who you are, you're probably human. Congratulations for becoming like the top of the species and food chain. But I'm not talking about what you are, say, physically, but what you do for a living. And that is usually, for those who are listening to this show, you're an MSP, you're a VAR, you're an IT integrator, you're an IT consultant. You do something technology related, networking, cybersecurity, so on and so forth. But you do that with other businesses. That's kind of the key demographic here at ChannelPro. You are a ChannelPro. That is why you're here, and we're glad to have you. Joining me each and every week is the man of the hour here at ChannelPro, the guy who keeps the trains running on time, although trains are so passe. He keeps the subway running on time, although that's been around a long time too. What's a new common, modern, high-tech form of transportation? I don't know. It seems like we don't have any anymore. So we're going to stick with trains anyway. That man is executive editor Rich Freeman. Welcome, Rich.
Thank you very much. What's the thing Elon Musk is building, the Hyperloop?
Yeah, but that doesn't really exist yet. As far as I know, all he's done is he built a tunnel underneath Vegas so people could drive Teslas around underground. I'm not really sure how modern and exciting that is, but if the Hyperloop thing ever kind of comes to fruition, that might be a new form of high-tech travel. Otherwise, travel kind of stalled, didn't it? Like, we've got trains, we've got planes. What else is what's the next thing?
I'm just looking for a label here, and the label, I think, should be that I'm the guy who keeps the Teslas under Las Vegas moving. Apparently,
Richard, you're the one who plugs the chargers into the cars in the evening, huh? That's your job. Yep. So awesome stuff. Rich, some stuff to talk about with you in a minute, but I'm very excited. We just kind of heard his voice there for a second. We do have a guest with us this week. We're very, very excited to have him. He is the very definition, in fact, of a self-made man whose road to success was paved with, as he would probably say, obsessive customer service. In 2001, he began operating his business as a side job, and in 2014, he went all in, and since has grown his business to include numerous clients across a wide range of verticals. Please welcome the founder and chief geek officer of Blanco IT, Esteban Blanco. Welcome, Esteban.
Thank you so much, Matt and Rich, for having me. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to be part of this conversation today. And with me is our technical services guru for Blanco IT, Luke Bishop.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, great to have you guys on. Esteban, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was born in San Jose, Costa Rica. And in 1997, I had an opportunity to move to the United States, invited by a group, music group out of California called Celebrant Singers, to move up to the United States and sing with them. So I had the opportunity to travel to 48 states and numerous countries around the world singing with them. In the year 2000, I decided to leave the road because I was a little tired of the constant travel. It was 10 and a half months out of 12 that we were on tour. And so that became a little bit of a chore, and decided to get off the road and look for a new career. And that's when I discovered the IT industry through my friend in California, Danny DeSimas, who was going to school to become an IT professional. So he taught me a lot of what I knew at the very beginning of the career. In 2001, my ex-wife and I decided that we wanted to move to Texas and come to the Lone Star State, specifically the city of Arlington, where we're headquartered still. And I was able to get into the industry by, from the very bottom, to just, help desk and just moving all the way up until becoming chief geek officer of this outfit called Blanco IT that we are proudly managing today.
I like the title. How'd you come up with that?
I just I didn't want to be just a regular old CEO, right? And so I'm a geek, and I'm proud to be a geek, and so I thought, what can be different than CEO? And I thought, well, I'm the owner, so I'll be the chief of the geeks in the company. And so it was a chief geek officer. And then my hope is eventually he's going to go to chief something in the company. And so, from technical services guru, but even then our titles is something that we wanted to be fun and new and different, and I think guru is a very strong word, to use for somebody that's very good at what they do. And so since Luke is phenomenal at what he does, and that's why I said your technical services guru, this is your baby and you manage it. So, and he does a great job with that.
That's awesome. So that's a great opportunity to segue over to Luke. Luke, so why don't you tell us a little about you and your background?
Yeah, I started with Esteban, in February of 2021 as a contractor, and have since then have started full time more recently, and have just been enjoying it. I've not been, academically in the IT industry for very long, but I would say I've been a geek for a long time. Growing up with computers and growing up with technology, it's kind of felt like second nature to me a little bit. I love tinkering and just messing around with things, and sometimes breaking them, and then having to fix things. So that's given me a broad understanding of a number of things, and just a fascination to learn. And so working for Esteban has been, an amazing opportunity and blessing, because I have now been exposed to a much wider range of technologies that that I'm getting to learn for the first time.
Well, and you can tell he's also from South Texas.
I picked up on the accent. I was going to ask him where he's from. So where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from England. So I came to Texas 5 years ago with a missions organization, and met Esteban and have been friends for a while, and then decided to start helping him. Started with one job and has turned into a full-time position.
And it's interesting because he said working for Esteban, and I don't say that. He works with me. Luke has become more of a partner to me than an employee, because we're both trying to grow the company together. We're both putting in, the things that are going to make the company better. Like you said, Matt, we're obsessed with customer service. So we're all constantly looking for ways to make the customer experience better. And so Luke has been an invaluable asset to bring into the company, because he has some really fresh ideas of what people are looking for. And when you have brought in the right partner to work with you and all these things, when your clients tell you, hey, we're having an issue, but do you mind sending Luke? We want to see him. That's when you know that you've hired the exact right person for the job, when the customers are actually happy to see him and having a good relationship with him, which is, again, the mantra that we live at Blanco I.T, which is customer service.
I've been looking forward to a chance to ask about this, actually, because, and I should say, Esteban was on the cover of ChannelPro in 2020, I believe, at some point. And it wasn't until well after that story was written that I realized you've got, plenty of customers. You're running a good sized business there, but it really is just you and Luke, right? In terms of who is full time, and you're relying on contractors. It's a very different model, I think, from what a lot of folks in the audience are probably used to. So how does that work? How did that come about?
Well, it's finding the right people, Rich. We have an office in Costa Rica that we do all the graphic and web design over there. So one of the things that we're trying to achieve, and we're still in the process of achieving, is making it a one-stop shop for all the customers, right? And so we realize that we cannot be experts in absolutely everything, right? Because the industry is so broad. And so if we try to go and become experts in absolutely everything, we're going to most likely miss something. And so for me, it makes more sense to have partnerships with different companies, even other MSPs. We have a very close partnership with Q3 Tech Group out of Arlington, Texas. And my good friend Kenneth Stewart is the owner of that. And Kenneth and I bounce ideas to one another. Luke has done work for him, and I've sent Luke to his office when his help desk person was down. Luke went over there and helped a little bit. And finding those partnerships have been invaluable. Being able to have that graphic web design, app development arm to the company, then starting an entity in Costa Rica with my best friend over there, for us to be able to say, you need a website, we can handle that, and we can take care of that. And finding, like I said, the right partners. For example, Cloud9, which is the people that we use for phone systems. We looked high and low, finding the company that was going to match our mantra, okay? That was going to match what we sell our customers. And it was one of those that I physically wanted to go see the facilities, and they happened to be in Arlington, Texas. And so, it's just finding the right people. And like I said, the model is different because a lot of MSPs go out there and just hire a bunch of people and bring them into the fold. And we do it differently. We both work very hard, Luke and I. I mean, it's definitely because, like you said, we have a pretty good size business, and we don't get bored, do we, Luke?
No.
we don't have time to get bored. But we are also very cognizant and what amount of business we take in. We had an opportunity recently with a company that's very, very large that we looked at it and we said, you know what? If we're not going to be able to give 100% absolute greatness to this company, we don't need to take it on. And it was one of the decisions that I had to make because it was when we could always hire somebody and onboard them to just handle this customer, but that would take time, and the risk of us not being able to always give them 100% of us was there, and so we just don't even risk it. That to some MSPs may sound crazy because you're like, well, don't you want to grow? Oh, absolutely. But I think that growth can hurt you. We're actually seeing it with an MSP that or a big IT company that is buying smaller IT companies, and we're getting calls from their clients saying, we're not happy, and could you give us a quote? And that's that type of growth that they have not been able to manage that is causing them to lose customers. And so you don't want to do that. And so that's one of the things that we do is like when we have an opportunity, Luke and I sit down and discuss it. I tell him, what do you think? And this is what's coming in, and I explain my reasons of why I have hesitancy, or he may explain his reasons for hesitancy, and we, as a team, come up with the answer of how we want to handle it. But yeah, we rely on contractors, and if a cabling job that we're going to do is too large for the two of us to run the cables, we have the right contractor to come in and do the cabling. If we have a situation where we need more technical hands, we have people in our Rolodex that we can call. Did I literally just say Rolodex? And I'm an IT industry person. But yeah, that's the model that we've followed, and so far so good. We're 2021, 8 years in, and almost 8 years in, and it's been working. So we're just kind of learning and cruising and putting what we know to work.
Is it the big like circular Rolodex that you twist as like a tube? And
it's absolutely funny you say that. John Stemkowski, the owner of Celebrant Singers, he is old school as all get out. And that man, when we go on tour, because I sometimes still go on tour with the band and just do a couple of weeks of concerts and come home. But that man carries his Rolodex, God's honest truth, carries his Rolodex in his garment bag, not even his suitcase, in his garment bag. He throws it underneath the plane. And I always tell John, I said, that Rolodex gets lost, man, you are doomed. And I'm like, you have a device that we can put all this in, and I'll gift you the database. I'll put my team to give you the database to do this. And he carries a damn Rolodex this big in his suitcase, and we're just like, what is he doing? But anyway, yeah.
Talk about resistant to change. Still rocking the Rolodex. So Esteban, I got a couple of questions for you just before we're going to get rolling into the news. But you operated your business as a side job for a long time. I know you came over as a musician, and I want to ask you a little bit about that too. But you started as a side job. How much of a side job was it early on, and what drove you to finally say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, the side job was, little extra cash to go on vacation type of thing. A lot of it was doing home stuff, and so I would just, little jobs here and there. Then a company, a small business called me and said, do you do small business? And I was like, I don't know. But, I would tell them, it's a weekend thing. I can come on the weekends. which is never ideal, of course, for any business. You know, if it's Tuesday at 9 a.m., you need help then. And so I would just operate it as a side business, just like I said, extra cash here and there. Then I had a job that was, 60, 70 hours a week at times that kept me really, really busy, and I was making really good money on there. Then I made I think what was the worst, career decision, which was to move to a different company where I was there for a year, and it was just not a good fit. We were just not, it was just not a good job. And they decided to have a layoff, and they said, we're gonna we don't need you anymore type of situation. So it was my first time in all of my career, not only in the IT industry, but any job that I had been let go. Sans the job in Costa Rica that I was driving a funeral hearse without a driver's license, but that's a whole different story that I can tell you about later. They asked if I knew how to drive. They never asked if I had a license. I was 16. But
minor details.
I was 16, who knows? But anyway, it was one of those that I got in my car with my box, put it in the car, and I was not freaking out for whatever reason. I was not heartbroken. I was it was like a sense of relief. In driving home, I just go, I think I got the chops to do this on my own. So I called my ex-wife, Heather, and I said, hey, what do you think? I just lost my job, and what do you think? She said, well, we'll talk about it when I get home from work. And we sat down, and she said, do it. I'm all in. Fortunately, she's a teacher, so she had a pretty decent salary, and we had a little bit of savings. And, I feel like the hand of Providence from above came about because, within that week that this happened, they came, one of my old bosses from a job, three or four jobs prior, called me out of the blue and said, hey, can you meet? And I said, absolutely. He said, don't tell anybody you're meeting me. So at first I thought, oh no, Frank is in trouble. And so I took my passport, cash, and a carry-on with clothes. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. This is true, honest to God's true story. And I showed up to the place, and they had me sign a non-disclosure agreement. And they said, hey, we're opening a new firm. We need IT help. And we didn't know if you still do this on the side. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I just opened Blanco I.T full time. And yeah, we can take you on. And he wrote me a check for $1,000 right then and there and said, here is the retainer for you, and let's start work. It was my very first client, and I still have the invoice and the check that I kept, because that was it. And that same week, I posted on Facebook to my friends and made the announcement that we were going full time. And the outpouring of people just coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, we have an IT company, but well, are you happy with them? Well, yeah, but it's you. And we want to move to you. And that just started happening. A friend of mine hired me to do a website that I was charging $1,500 for, gave me a check for $8,500. And the note said, the rest is to help you start your business. Gave me a tip of, $6,000 plus. It's just one of those things that it just snowballed. Another IT company, small IT company that was doing a lot of home stuff, they were overwhelmed with work, and he heard about me through a friend of mine. And so he started contracting me to do work. And that's how we survived that first year. And it's kind of interesting because I have an app on my phone that I've been using to keep track of our time for years. And if you go back to see year by year, and you just see the growth, the exponential growth of it, it's just really fun to watch. I mean, more than just running a QuickBooks P&L or comparison from years prior, you can actually see how year one, we build this much, year two, year three, and so on and so forth. And you just see the growth, and it's a very rewarding thing to watch for sure.
That's a very cool backstory, and I was reading the article that was about you in the magazine, because you were on the cover, and we got to hear a story about you in the magazine. It's a really interesting read. I really encourage everyone to check it out and learn a little bit more about your backstory, because it's just a fascinating story. The last thing I want to ask you before we move on, though, is you are a musician. That's kind of what brought you here. What do you play? What was that like?
Well, I play drums, but my primary instrument is I'm a singer. I'm a first tenor. And so I was in Orlando, Florida, at a conference for musicians in 1996, and this band was there and heard me singing, and they approached me and said, "Would you be interested in auditioning?" And I did, and the next thing I knew, I was on June 2nd of 97. I was on a plane to Los Angeles, and the rest was history. It was just the beginning of my new life here in the United States, where I've lived here longer than I've lived in Costa Rica. So even though my entire family and everybody's still down there, and I still consider Costa Rica my birthplace and my home, the United States has become my adoptive home for sure. I have a very deep love for this country, and I think Luke could probably relate to that, being from England, that you get to America and you do things right. You do things by the book, and a lot of doors open. It's amazing because we both get to live the American dream every single day, and that's a real fun thing to do. But yeah, my primary instrument is singing, and I also play drums. Not very good, but I play drums.
Very cool. And you said you still tour occasionally, or you still play and sing for this band?
Yeah, I do. Occasionally, when they come through Texas, if they come through Dallas, Fort Worth, and they have concerts, I go on stage with them. I usually have the suit and the outfit that they have for the tour that year, or they bring it with them in the tour bus, and I change into it and go on stage. And recently I've gone on actual tours with them, where it's a couple of weeks out of country and playing 10, 15 concerts and coming home after that. So I can't do the whole 3.5 months on the road anymore. It's too exhausting. People think it's this glamorous thing when you're on the road traveling the world, and you're like, you have no idea what the schedule is like. It's brutal.
Are you able to share the name of the band with us, or?
Yeah, Celebrant Singers out of Visalia, California. That's the name of the band.
Oh, very cool. Maybe we can, does the band have like a website? Maybe we can point people to it if they want to go check you out in concert as well.
Celebrants.org.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rich, grab that URL from him, and we'll make sure we include that in the show sheet. But very, very cool stuff. I'm super excited to have you here, Esteban. Luke, it's great having you on with us as well. We've got a lot to talk about in the news coming up. We're going to be talking about HP. They've got something going on. We're going to be talking about a story, it looks like, about Datto is coming up. We're going to be talking about the year of the predictable. We'll see what that's all about. That sounds like an interesting headline to cover. And we got an awesome interview coming up with Rex Frank. He's the VP of Academy at PAX 8. Also a familiar face to those who've been longtime viewers or listeners. So a lot ahead for you. Rich, one thing that I do want to talk about, though, is we've got a lot of events coming up. And Esteban's been to a couple of our events, and we have a show in Newark coming up. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's actually the first of 6 shows, one-day shows we're going to be doing in different cities around the country. We've been doing this for years, and we're doing it again in 2022. Newark, beginning of March, Chicago, beginning of May, Dallas, beginning of June, and then Charlotte, Southern California, and the Washington, D.C. area. I forget which months, but you can find information about all of this at events.channelpronetwork.com. And yeah, I'm super excited. You and I, both kind of behind the scenes at ChannelPro are spending a lot of time now getting this whole events thing up and running. So we're ready to go in New Jersey, and we're going to have a security dedicated. The thing I love about security is the stories. When I get to speak with security experts, they always have fascinating stories to tell. And so we're going to have a sort of security storytelling session we're calling the Security Slam. And it will be interesting stories, but you will learn applicable information and advice from those stories as well. We have a session that we're arranging like a game show around employer recruitment and hiring, huge pain point in the industry right now. And so if you are trying to do that these days, it's a lot like playing the dating game, and we figured let's do the session exactly like the dating game. So that's how we're kind of setting that up, to give you some tips on how to woo that potential employee that you want to bring on board. We've got a session with some managed services experts and gurus who are going to be talking about getting through these next few years, figuring out, thinking your way through the M&A wave that's happening now and shift strategically in the industry. We're kind of making that a little fun too. We've got it arranged like the TV show Survivor, where they'll each be kind of providing their advice on various issues, and the audience will decide who to vote off the island. So more information, lots of really, really interesting stuff. Events.channelpronetwork.com. Please register now. And Matt, what should they do when they register?
Yeah, we're gonna put a code up here, a QR code that's gonna take you to a page where you can find where to register for the Newark, New Jersey show. We've got a promo code for you. When you register, use promo code CPVIP, and I believe that will let you register. I'm not actually sure what does that code do, Rich. I probably should have asked Daisy.
That gets you in for free.
I believe that's what it is. I believe that'll get you in for free on show day. So CPVIP, that is our exclusive code for you, for Channel Pro Weekly listeners. Come and join us March 9th in Newark, New Jersey. And if you're not in the Newark, New Jersey area, we've got more shows coming up later on in the year. One hopefully near you. We're going to Rich. Where are we going?
Well, the 6 cities are Newark, Chicago, Dallas, Charlotte, Washington, D.C., and Southern California, so Los Angeles.
Very cool. So keep an eye out for shows coming in towards you. Register for the Newark show if you can make that. CPVIP is the code. Go and do that right now. Pause. Go register. Then come back. All right, Rich. We got a lot to cover here. A lot ahead. A lot of great content. Tell us about Datto. What's going on with them?
Yeah, interestingly enough, as we record this news is just a few hours old, and about 90 minutes from now, as we record this, I will be interviewing Tim Weller, the CEO of Datto. So I will know more about this soon than I do right now, but I can kind of give you the basics about what was announced today, which is that Datto has purchased a security vendor called Infosight, Infocyte. Founded in 2014, based in Austin, Texas. They specialize in endpoint detection and response. Significantly, though, they do both EDR, endpoint detection and response, and MDR, managed detection and response. And so Datto has been investing heavily in security, building out their security portfolio for a while at this point. What is different and new about this particular acquisition is that it gets them into security services, essentially, for the first time, in addition to security functionality and security software and so on. So Infosight, just to kind of give you some perspective, because last year Datto bought a company called BitDam, which is a little bit past the startup stage, but a relatively small company that did threat detection based in Australia. This is a bigger company than that. We don't know how much they cost to buy, but over 150,000 endpoints under management, over 2 billion events captured and analyzed per month, over 16 million security event notifications per month. So decent sized company. Like I said, they've got an EDR product that you can use on a standalone basis, optionally if you want. You can also get the managed response service, which means they've got a SOC and a team of analysts there who can kind of help you interpret what's going on and prioritize what's going on. They have an incident response business. They can kind of step in and help you resolve a problem if something happens. ConnectWise has had this kind of capability for a while, pretty much ever since they bought Continuum. A SOC came along with that, a managed security service. Last year, Kaseya bought a company also based in Texas, actually, called Rocket Cyber. And since then, they have had a managed detection and response service, enable partners with MDR providers. But this kind of gets Datto into that MDR game, which is an increasingly important kind of central part of the security story. We've been watching the security vendors all make sure that they have an MDR offering on top of a software offering, and slowly watching the big managed service software makers get into that area too. This is Datto getting into it. And so this sits on top of the ransomware detection and patch management functionality in their RMM system, which is obviously security related. This is in addition to SaaS Defense, the Microsoft 365 cloud detection and response solution they introduced last year. based on that BitDam acquisition. This is in addition, obviously, to their the BDR products that they're still probably most famous for, and the business continuity solution for Microsoft Azure that they did last year. So we've been watching them build up that security stack and security portfolio. And I mean, I'll ask this question of Tim Weller later today, but I have a hunch they're not quite done yet.
I'm about to say that they don't have a lot of holes left anymore as far as competing with the likes of a Kaseya and a ConnectWise. What do they still have left to fill?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they regard this as a gap or not. And interestingly enough, Kaseya doesn't have this either, but they don't have antivirus. And Kaseya does have like a dark web and security awareness training, but they don't have that yet. So there are some security, other security related things that they could add to the family.
Very cool. Esteban, I'll turn it over to you. Are you a Datto partner, or does this just shake you in any specific way?
We are. We use Datto for a lot of the clients that are wanting to do the backup to the cloud. Incredibly enough, we still have clients that don't believe in cloud backup. And so even though we get blue to our face telling them this is the only way to really protect you. But when we do have that opportunity, we send them to Datto, and we work with Datto. I believe is one of the best in the industry for disaster recovery and business continuity. And I think it's just it's a very natural progression onto that, right? If you're hit with a ransomware attack and you have Datto to recover from it, you could actually just keep following that lead into that product that can help you figure out how they got in and what you need to patch for that never happen again while we're recovering the data. I think it's a very natural progression in what they're trying to do in the industry. And if it's going to be anything based on how good they are with the backup and business continuity stuff, I can't wait to see what they're going to do. I mean, we've been looking at the RMM situation with Datto to see if that's something that we are interested in maybe moving towards, to have a one-stop shop for all of our products. You know, there's obviously there is something to be said about, you know, keeping something separate, because if one gets hit, the whole thing gets hit. And so there's something to consider there. But, you know, I think they're making really big strides out there in the industry. And, you know, we have both experienced Datto, and you know, I think it's natural for them to do this, and it's good.
Yeah, very cool. Rich, is there any, I know you haven't done the interview yet, so I don't know if you have a whole lot else to say on this, but do you see this being impactful to Datto going forward? Are they going to be able to do a lot more than they could in security? You know, something better to sell? What do you think?
No, I mean, I think definitely, and it'll be very interesting to hear if we can get any kind of sense from Tim Weller about the larger vision of where they go with this next. But yeah, this definitely gives them a whole new set of capabilities. And I think, Esteban, your point about how this dovetails so nicely with the whole recovery story that, you know, and set of services that provide is a really interesting one, and that'll be interesting too. One thing they did mention in the press release is that they are going to be looking to integrate Infosight products with the RMM tool, so that if you are a Datto RMM user and you're interested in taking advantage of some of these services, it's going to be right in the RMM for you. So I'll be curious to learn more about how that might look down the road.
Very cool. Well, we probably aren't done with this story. We'll probably learn a little bit more, and we'll have some more information on the ChannelProNetwork.com website for you. As a reminder, folks, as we go through these stories, we will post links to all of them, all these stories, because we're just going to kind of touch the high level stuff here in the show and kind of get our thoughts. But there's usually a lot more detail. So go open the show sheet for episode 211. If you have it on your phone, you can open the description there. Usually the links are there for you. If you're watching on YouTube, open the description area. Otherwise, go to ChannelProNetwork.com, find the show sheet for 211, and all these stories are going to be conveniently linked for you, so you can kind of read the details and read along while we go through them. So HP, Rich, is in the news, not for security stuff, but because they've got some new hardware that look to be aimed at the education market that looks interesting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and actually there were a number of vendors this week who were announcing education-focused PCs. I happen to have an opportunity to learn about and write about the HP devices. A number of them there. From HP's perspective, this isn't just a new set of education laptops. They actually launched a whole new sort of PC platform around this that they're calling HP Fortis, Fortis. That's the Latin word for strong. Because what is the number one attribute you need in a laptop that students are going to be using? It better be pretty rugged. And so that is one of the things that they're trying to do with all of these devices. And it really is, it's a somewhat new approach to education laptops that I think a lot of the manufacturers are getting into right now. And it's directly based from all the remote learning that's been going on during the pandemic era. Now, they made a real point at HP of saying that hybrid learning, which some school districts used for some period of time, where you had some students in the classroom and some students at home simultaneously listening to the same lesson, they don't see much of a future in that. But what they're calling blended learning, where students do some of their learning in the classroom, some of it at home, and pretty much all of it, regardless of what they're learning and where they're doing it, is at least a little bit digitally and is happening on a laptop. That's here to stay. And so this new platform that HP came up with is really designed to accommodate, to align with that kind of a model, where it's not that, you know, kids come into the classroom, they pull a laptop out of the rack, they use it for a little bit for a lesson, and this is something that they're going to be using all day. They're going to be moving around with, using at home. So the devices have to be durable, they have to be rugged, they have to be portable, they have to be reasonably light. High-speed connectivity is important, and wireless or mobile connectivity if there isn't necessarily high-speed Wi-Fi in the home. And then the other thing, and this was kind of interesting, is they said, you know, these devices, HP said, these devices need to have somewhat larger displays than education PCs typically have in the past. The classic school PC up to this point might have like an 11-inch screen. Most of, not all of, but most of the devices that HP introduced this week have 14-inch screens. And the thinking basically is you want to have enough real estate on that display to both watch a video or a lecture or whatever it is on one part of the screen and take notes about it in another. And that just takes more display space. So yeah, you know, and what can we say here about the device? Unless you want to get into some specific models, Matt, I'll just kind of say starting weights 3 pounds and up. They're all kind of in that 3 to 4 pound range. Mechanically reinforced corners, reinforced power, and USB-C ports, because they know kids are just going to yank the cables out of those ports. You really want to make sure those are anchored in there. Another thing, and this was a phrase they used in their press conference I hadn't used or heard before, but they've defended these devices against key pickers. Because fidgety kids will just put their finger under the keycap and pull it right out of there, and they've made sure that's pretty hard for them to do. Spill resistant, you know, drop resistant, a lot of the things that you would expect to make these devices more rugged. And the only other thing I'll say is all of the Fortis devices that were unveiled this week are for schools, K through 12 schools. But HP sees some promise in this platform for other realms as well, for other people who are very mobile and need something, an unusually tough kind of PC. So you will see Fortis devices for maybe field service people, for example, coming from HP down the road.
Yeah, I don't think we need to dive too much into the specific models, but note that there's some 14-inch ones. That's actually interesting. We're going to talk about that for a second. There's also an 11-inch convertible that they have as well. They also introduced some kind of new webcam. What's interesting about the webcam?
Right, and that was I'm just trying to get to that place in my story here. Yeah, that's actually not for the students. That's for the teachers. Which is kind of interesting. And, the teachers are basically, because they're recording videos, because they're doing instruction online, image quality and image speed and resolution, all that actually, you really have to kind of consider some of the production values that go into that kind of a thing. And so they have a couple of different 5 megapixel devices that they've introduced, 66-degree viewing angle. It auto adjusts a lot of, so teachers aren't necessarily technical, so you plug in the cable, it's going to kind of auto adjust and optimize for you. And I mean, very reasonable prices. One of these devices goes, or will go when it ships in February, for like $40 list price, and another, actually they're both right around that same price range, $41. So yeah, that, laptops for the students and webcams for the teachers.
Yeah, nice. So I have, there's a lot that I can talk about in terms of educational books. I have 2 kids, so I can kind of draw on them as a kind of examples here. So Esteban, do you have kids, Luke?
We don't. Him and his wife do not have kids, neither do I, but I actually worked for the Irving Independent School District from 2001 through 2003. And we gave laptops to all the students at Irving High School. And I can tell you that I'm surprised it took this long to get to a model like this. We actually had, the brand was not HP that we had there, but Unisys was the vendor that maintained the laptops and fixed the laptops. And it got to the point where we had to have a full-time Unisys employee on site Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So that person in the vendor, the manufacturer, would just send all these parts that were keyboards, screens, motherboards, because they would yank on the power cable and then break the motherboard, and we had them stacked in the office, and that was a constant thing, because we were so busy replacing all these parts, myself and the other guy that did the stuff, that we're like, we don't have enough time to do the other stuff and support the teachers and do the other support stuff. So I'm surprised that it took this long to get a laptop that was that rugged, because it's been something that's been going on for quite some time. But it's interesting to hear what everything that they put into it. What do you think, Lucas?
Yeah, I think on top of it being rugged, I hope that it would be repairable. Like you mentioning that repair, it's like if a port gets broken, it sucks to have to pull out the whole motherboard, and if the motherboard, how the motherboard is mounted and stuff like that. Those little details can really, slow a repair down, or make it expensive, prohibitively expensive. So, I think, I hope that they've kind of considered that, even though it's rugged, it's also got to be, somewhat repairable.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant that they're building in that it's built in LTE. So if there is a place where they don't have, internet access, that they can actually use cell towers to be able to learn. I think that these are lessons learned from the pandemic, right? And it's a business opportunity that HP is taking, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I
actually,
agree.
that's a huge detail that I left out. So I'm glad you brought that up. I mentioned, part of HP's vision for blended learning is the importance of high-speed connectivity. All of these devices have either standard or optional 4G LTE for exactly that reason. And before I forget, Luke, I don't know a lot about it, but there is they have designed these laptops so that you can pull the bottom of the device off somewhat easily and get at what's in there. So they did have that issue in mind.
Yeah, repairability is important, because I have seen from my kids' school district, like they don't have like racks of computers where everyone just has like they go and they get a computer. Every kid is issued, in their case, a Chromebook. And I have seen some of their friends' Chromebooks, and there are key pickers in this world. There are lots of broken screens. There are a lot of keyboard replacements. In fact, the district sent over like a price list. Like if you're not insured, if you didn't pay for the insurance, like these are what it's going to cost if your kid breaks this, and this, and this. And I guess they have repairs rolling all the time on those. A couple things I want to know. I don't know if anybody knows what the future of school is going to be like over the next 3 years. Most people do believe it's going to be some form of blended learning. I do agree with HP that digital learning, these computers that get issued to the kids are going to become more and more important, just because a lot of teachers have gotten used to submitting, having assignments submitted that way, and then you're going to have kids that are in and out of the classroom. It seems a lot. I know it's kind of a bummer that the district decided that, well, there's no such thing as snow days anymore because every kid is equipped to work from home if if they can't get into the school that day, and they've got requirements that if kids get put on quarantine, that they have to attend the classes remotely. So they are in kind of a hybrid blended model, and it's cool to see HP addressing this with computers that are more thoughtfully designed for that. I cannot tell you honestly, the 14-inch screen is genius. That is the one thing that I know my kids fight with a lot with their computers, is that 11-inch screen size is real. It really is like a one app at a time kind of thing, and it's very, very frustrating because they can't do windowed views very, very easily on them. So that's cool to see. LTE is important for those families who would require that. That's also an expensive thing for a district to offer to every student. So I have to imagine that that's going to be something that's only turned on when necessary.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, they could also go to a vote, right? And if they have to get some capital to be able to get that, they could put it on the ballot and get the money for it. That's something that a lot of school districts do. And another question that is coming to mind, Matt, is, you know, as we're teaching these kiddos to do hybrid, going to the school 1 day or 2 days a week and then coming home, what is that going to do for the future of employment? I think that we're training them to work from home, you know.
It's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Although I'm not 100%. So this is just opinion, right? But I am not 100% sold that all schooling is going to be some blended half home, half in the class model. I think it really will depend on the district and where you live. But I really see education going back in person, based on the teachers that I know, based on just our experience as parents with kids. Like, kids need to be in school. They need to be in a classroom for the most part. So I'm not 100% convinced that like they're going to be in this work from home model a lot, unless it is required for some reason. I believe in person is what everybody wants for the most part. But I do agree that that the students are going to be issued notebooks, and that's what a lot of their schoolwork is going to be done on going forward. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So it's cool to see them address that. What do you think, Esteban? Do you agree? Do you think that that's the future of education, is this blended model?
You know, I don't know. I know that from having been married to a teacher and knowing a lot of teachers, they do not like the kids to be in the classroom. Another thing that I think is interesting to note from the political side of things is that the legislatures around the country are going to have to, you know, talk to their education, engines over there, because a lot of the funding that school districts get is kids showing up to class and sitting themselves in the classroom. And so that, you know, when you're talking about rethinking and reshaping legislation to be able to change that pay model, where school districts would have a burden to say, well, that kid was working from home, but we need to get paid for this student. That's like turning the Titanic 10 feet away from that iceberg. It's a very difficult thing to do. And so it would be interesting to see, because, you know, the education agencies in Texas and Oklahoma, you know, Washington, wherever you are, they're probably having all the same discussions, and they're probably having to look at this, because, I mean, sending them home because of the pandemic is the mother of necessity. But when the pandemic becomes an endemic, which I'm hoping is getting closer to that with this Omicron variant, then what? Do we go back to having the kids in school or not? I mean, and I think that it's one of those that I don't know. What do you think, Luke?
I mean, I think if I was in school right now, I'd lap up the time at home, you know, and, you know, I think I'd be a keyboard picker, you know, and it'd be, you know, messing with my friends, you know, moving their keys around, you know, forcing them to touch type, whatever. Yeah, I think
I could see that, actually.
Yeah, like, I think as someone who, you know, has got out of education, you know, in the not distant past, like, I think I would be enjoying it, but it would suck. Like the amount of you know, self-discipline that you have to to get up in the morning and be ready and like learning. It's easier when you have a routine. It's easier when you have a schedule, when you've got to show up at the place and the teacher can see if you're not paying attention, or if you're talking to your friend, or you're looking at your phone. Like, all of those things kind of disappear you know, when you're working from home or when you're doing school from home. And you know, I think that's hard for adults. You know, I've got friends, you know, who are young adults, and it's like discipline is a real hard thing to come by. And I think it's challenging to teach that. And I don't expect a, you know, 14, 15-year-old to have heaps of it ready to go. So, you know, any tools that make it easier, you know, I'm in favor of. But yeah, I think being back in person is probably important.
And having the right tools for supporting that is important. That's why HP's got this new Fortis line, and they're not alone. Rich, other companies, Lenovo and Dell, they have some ruggedized student derived computers, right?
I mean, just this week, you know, this must have been something coordinated by Microsoft, because HP had products, Acer announced products, I believe Dell announced products. So yeah, there are you know, now that Windows 11 is out, so I think there is this wave of these new education PCs arriving.
Very cool. And it's nice to see HP addressing the teacher side too, because that was also a big complaint that my kids had, especially when they were stuck at home doing remote schooling, is that the view was terrible. So like a $40 webcam can really improve that streaming experience from the teacher side. That helps a lot of students. So very cool stuff. So we kind of touched on those. There's a lot of detail about the specific models on this article. So go there, folks, check it out, look through those, lots of pictures that you can go and see what those look like, and consider deploying those if you have business customers that you deal with. We've touched on it a little bit during that story about, you know, whole COVID pandemics and the way it's been for the last couple of years. And we don't know what it's going to be like. We know what it was like the last couple of years. We don't know what it's going to be like tomorrow. But we are expecting that it's going to be at least somewhat more predictable, at least when it comes to the cloud computing and security markets. Rich, we have an article on this. Welcome to the year of the predictable. Tell us about that.
And I will just say this it might sound like either a silly title for a story or a brave one for me to have called this article "Welcome to the Year of the Predictable." But I'm standing by it. So this every year in our January issue, our cover story is sort of a preview of the year ahead, and that's the story we're talking about for this year. And like you said, I mean, you know, go back in time a year ago, and who knew what to expect for 2021, except that it couldn't be worse than 2020, right? What struck me this year, every year when I'm preparing this story, I go out and I talk to experts in a number of different fields and get their predictions about the year ahead. And what struck me is that over and over again in these conversations, they basically said more of the same. Now that there were, you know, there were twists and wrinkles and nuances and so on, but in a lot of ways, where in the last 2 years, everything has been changing left and right around us. And we all know that the world is still, you know, very much in flux. I think as far as the tech industry is concerned, a lot of what we've seen unfolding in the last 18 months is what we can expect to continue to see in the next 12 months. So, I mean, what does that mean? Well, in the managed services market, you know, that the M&A wave that we talk about so much, that's going to be going on. It's going to be, you know, hiring conditions, which we were alluding to before. Those are not getting any better, unfortunately, in 2022. One interesting thing, the person I spoke to about managed services was Gary Pica of True Methods and now of Kaseya. And he made a prediction. He's, you know, because this is based on what he's been seeing in 2020, 2021, where the top 25% of MSPs are really kind of pulling away from the bottom 50%. The more mature companies are really kind of outperforming the market in aggregate, and he expects a great deal more of that. And so if, you know, if you are in that bottom 50%, he's like, you're either going to have to really kind of buckle down and get more efficient and think more strategically, or you're going to have to kind of cultivate a niche maybe that'll kind of help you compete, because it's going to be harder to compete as an MSP, both because you'll be competing with bigger companies, which in some ways can be harder, and because you'll be competing with companies that are just sort of on their game, maybe. And if you're not, that could be an issue. Cloud computing, again, pretty predictable. We've watched the world kind of sailing into the cloud, and that's just going to continue to happen. Gartner expects cloud spending worldwide to go up 22% this year. to over $482 billion, which is a little bit less. Last year's growth figure was 27%. 22% is still pretty good. And compare that to Gartner's projection for IT spending overall this year, which is 5.5%. So you can really kind of see where the investments are being made. And it's not just in the cloud, because what's the other huge market in the last 2 years? Security. That's going to remain the case as well, very much. And, ransomware is not going away. We got a prediction from John Olczyk, the analyst, security analyst I spoke to, who unfortunately is pretty convinced that the SolarWinds supply chain attack isn't the last one of that sort that we're going to see. He expects to see 1, 2, or more of those like right this year. So that's going to be going on. An interesting one, and this is maybe a little bit less predictable than the other markets, but the hardware market, which we were just talking about. About a week ago, I was speaking with a senior partner executive at Dell, and they're just coming off of an absolutely blockbuster record quarter. And I mean, all the big hardware makers are turning in incredible numbers right now. And I think in some ways that those sales figures have lasted longer than a lot of people expected. I remember there being projections that by the time you get into the second half, the last quarter of 2021, that's going to kind of slow down. And the projections for 2022 from the analysts and from the companies like Dell is it's going to slow down this year. But I think there's still life especially in the laptop market in 2022. And so in some sense, there's a little bit of predictability there based on what we've seen before. So that's what I mean by the year of the predictable. Lord only knows what to expect about viruses and everything else happening on the planet. But in terms of IT, there are certain things that you've gotten used to that you can expect to continue.
Year of the predictable, and then tomorrow there's going to be a new story that an asteroid's going to hit the planet and we're all doomed. So you never know. Esteban, what do you think? I know you kind of read through this, and it's a long article, folks. There's lots of good predictions and good things in here to go check out, but I just want to kind of touch on it high level. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be another predictable year, more of the same? Do you see something different?
I think so. I think that for us is going to be more moving people closer to cloud computing and making sure that most, if not all, of our clients are ready to go home without us having to spend the night in the car. When they did shelter in place. I think that's going to be, the cloud computing is exactly right on the money where we need to be, and again, cloud backup and all those things. But I think security is an ever evolving situation that we're seeing, that we are, I think, as a community trying to keep up with. I think that they somehow have a little bit of an advantage right now. They're a little ahead of the game, the bad guys, and I think that's something that we're going to see more and more as the year goes along. That supply chain attack for Kaseya, I know, shook me to my very core. Even though we don't use Kaseya, I could just feel the anxiety for my peers, that went through that. And so I think that those supply chain vendors really need to be very intentional in telling us, the customer, what can you do, and do everything in your power to make sure that you have everything secured. But it goes back to, if this is predictable, then what do you do to expect it? Do you get cybersecurity insurance? Do you get better backups? It's just one of those things that us as MSPs have to look at that predictability factor and then figure out how we actually, put our heads to work to be able to stay ready for it.
Interesting. Do you see any parts of the IT market that might be somewhat unpredictable?
I really don't. I think that what we've been seeing, since the pandemic started, I think is going to continue going. I think, like Rich said, the slowdown on the computers, but I mean, gosh, this week alone, I don't know how, clients have ordered 10 laptops or more. We have them sitting right here in sequence right now. We're getting some ready, and so I think that's going to continue to happen. I'm curious to know because one of the things that we're seeing is this massive delay on parts, massive delays on getting the equipment that you ordered shipped to you. And just it's something that I don't know how they're going to fix. And I don't know that that's even the vendor's problem to fix. If it gets to Port Los Angeles and nobody's there to unload the equipment, and so that's something that I know it's hurting us, and it's got to be hurting everybody in the industry. So I think that's one of the unpredictable things that I see perhaps in the industry, is that, we can sell the equipment all day long, but if it takes a month to get here, or if a motherboard goes out and you have next day business, support to get that motherboard replaced, but there's no motherboards to be had. So then what do we do? Do we buy laptops and have them on stack here, ready to go, for us to be able to tell a customer, here is a loaner and we'll get you so you can keep working? And we've done that. We have actually acquired a few laptops to be able to have those ready for customers when they need them.
Yeah, it's definitely something that everyone is struggling with, is with the supply chain issues, and we were seeing a lot of really creative approaches on how they're dealing with it, like that one. Luke, anything you want to add?
Ooh. Yeah, I wonder about the security. I think this idea of inherent risk, and I think for our clients, they want to know, am I protected? Am I secure? And that can be a kind of difficult question to answer. We try our best, and put into place all of these, policies and procedures and establish protection on their computers. But, as we've seen in the news the last, couple of months, if the FBI's email server can get hacked, what can we do, as an MSP, and what is that level of risk? And so I think for, providers of antivirus and monitoring tools, I think a question that, I would have for them is just, where are the gaps? What level of protection are you offering as a provider of this service, so that we can better understand what our package is providing our clients, and therefore, what risks are they assuming, and what are the possible, failure modes, so that we have a solution, ready to go, a plan A and B kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's my big question is where are those risks, and what are they going to look like? So.
For sure, and that's going to be an interesting thing to address this year, as those threats become more and more commonplace, and we have to deal with those on top of all these other things. But a little bit more of the same for 2022. At least that's the outlook right now. So great article, Rich. Make sure folks go and check that out. Give it a read. Lots in there to cover, lots of good quotes as well. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we've got an awesome interview lined up with Rex Frank. He's the VP of Academy at PAX 8. We're going to be talking about post-exit planning. What the heck does that mean? You'll have to stick around to find out. We'll be right back. Running an MSP, or any business for that matter, is a personal journey. But for most, it's a journey you'll want to someday end, and that means planning an exit strategy. But then what? Well, with careful planning and some soul searching, channel pros who sell their businesses can have a new beginning. And here to talk about that with us is Rex Frank, the Vice President of Academy at PAX 8. Hello, Rex.
Hey, howdy.
Hey, great to have you on. Again, you've joined us before in the past, if I remember correctly. So welcome back. Thanks for coming on to join this segment and talk about this pretty cool topic, which we're calling post-exit planning, because there's the end, but then something always comes after the end, at least unless you're being buried 6 feet under. Then you don't have much more planning to do, I suppose. But Rex,
that actually leads to a lot of complications for the family members, and a lot of times the business. You haven't properly planned for that.
That's true. Yeah, I guess if your exit strategy from your business is death, you should probably have your ducks in a row and think about that before you get to that point. But before we dive into the topic, because there's a lot here to cover, and I think this is going to be an awesome interview and great topic to go through. But Rex, tell us a little bit about you and your background.
I'll keep it super brief. I started in the business in the 80s as a tech, got promoted into that service manager role in the early 90s. 2004, I had an opportunity to join a service executives peer group. It was under part of True Profits Group. And it just really changed my career. It really held me accountable to managing the very specific financial metrics, ton of best practice sharing. And it was really just a career direction change for me. And I think that really set me up to grow well with a company. We were doing about 4 million in managed services revenue in 2007 when I left Alvaca Networks, moved up from Southern California up to the Northwest in Seattle, and joined Northwest Computer Support as a VP of managed services. I think Joe Panettiere actually did a story about that. I was the first one with that title, right? So, and then I learned a lot. Created and grew a managed services practice there, and then did it again with Jamison West at his firm. It was JWCS. I think he sold it as Arterian. And in 2010, it's kind of an interesting story, kind of a little bit of an accidental entrepreneur, right? I was super comfortable as the number 2 person in the company, really risk adverse, letting somebody else, the owner, carry that risk. And I was interviewing around the Seattle area for another MSP to sort of do an operational financial turnaround with. And people knew me from the ConnectWise user group, and I didn't have any trouble getting an interview, let's put it that way. But they all said the same thing to me, which was, I've already got a service manager, can I work with you to teach or coach the one I already have? And I said no 4 times because I really was looking for a full-time job. And the 5th time I got posed that question, I did a little quick math in my head and said yes. Spent the first year working with just a handful of MSPs, but mostly trying to just brain dump everything I knew about operational processes into this operations guide. And next thing I knew, I had more clients than I knew what to do with, and brought a peer from the industry on to join me. And fast forward from 2010 until 2021, C-Level was doing about 4 million in revenue annually. Coaching, at that point, we'd coached a little over 500 companies, primarily working with the service managers. And PAX 8 got interested because they discovered that C-level coach companies were buying like 2.5 times more cloud product than the average. And next thing I know, it happened pretty fast, but I was going through an acquisition. And I stayed on as the VP of Academy at PAX 8 to create really a partner enablement offering, geared at meeting every partner where they are and helping them consume, how to grow and mature their business in the way they want to consume it. So it's been an interesting ride the last 8 months.
And you still have, all sorts of relationships with lots of MSPs, C-level clients, and so on. So, I mean, you have a kind of a broad perspective on the MSP community and a lot of relationships and so on. And so, I mean, the main reason I very much wanted you to come on the show, we had an article in the January issue of our monthly magazine that was actually called Post-Exit Planning. And it was 100% inspired by a conversation you and I had, I want to say, last September. We were both at the IT by Design Build It conference in New Jersey. We were just chatting with one another. And you told me a story about a former client of yours. And I don't know if you remember the story or the client, but I mean, the starting point for it basically was that, like you said, you're in Seattle, so am I. You got a call one night from this client at like 9 p.m. your time. This guy's in Florida, so it's like midnight for him. And I mean, take it from there. How did that call go from there?
Oh, one of the things that's happened in the last 10 or 11 years is we've helped a lot of companies. My purpose was to help them grow and mature their businesses. But because of that, probably close to 50 of them have had a successful exit. And the story you're talking about, it was late at night, and I was thinking, man, he's on East Coast time. This is midnight his time. And he was pretty all over the place. Had a hard time tracking with what he was saying. He had all these crazy ideas. He wanted to do this and he wanted to do that and go over here and maybe really make some drastic changes in his life. And I remember saying, I think you're somewhere in the 5 stages of grief, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And David, I don't think you should be making any decisions right now that are that permanent. I want you to promise me you're going to wait at least another 3 months before you make any decisions. It actually scared me quite a bit because he was so unclear on what he wanted to do. He just exited weeks before, and literally he's trying to make these life-changing decisions in that moment.
And it was so interesting. Like while we were talking, Todd Scorley, one of your employees, popped in, and he ex-MSP, sold the business, went to work with you. He was listening to this and he said, yeah, same thing happened to me. I sold the business, and then it's like, well, now what? And it just opened my eyes to this whole issue that I hadn't really thought about before, which is, we talk a ton at ChannelPro, elsewhere, about exit planning, about preparing your business for a sale and conducting the sale. But we don't really think about what happens after the exit. And it's one thing if you want to retire and play golf after the exit, you've probably planned ahead a little bit there. But there are a lot of people who sell who don't want to retire. They're too young to retire, and they don't necessarily have a plan for what to do after they've actually sold the business. So, in your experience, how common a problem is that?
Well, I'd say it's a bigger problem right now for 2 reasons. Number one, MSP valuations are at sort of an all-time high, right? And there's a lot of private equity money kind of driving some of these. And there's some tax advantages with some uncertainty around what's going to happen with the capital gains rate. And there's a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, going on. I have these conversations with owners constantly, and they're thinking, man, if I don't do this now, am I going to miss a boat? And so I think that's leading to a lot of people entering into LOIs and purchase and sale agreements, and they really haven't had a chance to prepare for what's next in their life. And I'm afraid a lot of them are going to find themselves where David did.
So for the channel pros out there who maybe do get time, it's not quite as sudden and unexpected. Do you advise them to kind of think ahead to what you want to do with yourself after the exit and kind of build that into the exit plan essentially? Or do you typically give the kind of advice you gave your client David there, where it's like, get the exit done, then take 3 months to just think and, wait before you arrive at it?
Well, David had already exited when he called me. So yeah, he didn't, and I don't think he put enough into thinking about what he was going to do afterward. As I mentioned in the article, everybody thinks, oh, I'm thinking about selling my company, I need to put a team together. I need a CPA and I need, a lawyer. But, some people, spiritual advisors could be very important. Other people, just a life coach or a mentor coach, or doing some sort of a life plan to really help you come to the conclusion of what you want to do. And then don't forget your spouse, right? Like this could be a big change for them as well. In my case, personally, my wife, Robin, did the finance and HR side of C-level, and, had 10 years of her identity invested in this. And the sale happened pretty fast. And I still had a career there, but the bigger company didn't need what she did for the company. And she suddenly found herself, basically unemployed. And it wasn't a money thing. We got enough money that she didn't have to work, but what it literally was thrust into that. I don't know what to do. And I don't know what my identity is anymore.
I think a big part of that too is you could also try to find what you're passionate about, right? So many times I think when we're working, we think, man, when I retire, I'll be able to X, that'd be, you want to go build houses in Guatemala, or you want to be able to play golf every single day, or you want to be an advisor to other MSPs and you want to be, CIO for hire, type of situation. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think us as owners of MSPs can think about, but I think finding that passion is going to be absolutely key, right? Being able to say, this is what I'm really passionate about, and go find that. And you have, guess what? You're going to have a little cash to start something else that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think we have a little more than 20 coaches now at PAX 8 Academy / C-Level. And about half of them are at one point owned an MSP and sold and weren't sure what to do with themselves, and figured out that helping the community get through some of the pain they went through a little easier is something that they find a lot of fulfillment in.
Rex, do you think that happens a lot? I mean, to anybody who retires, or is it specific to MSPs?
It all depends on the planning you put into the retirement and decide, like, figuring out what you want to do. One of the pieces of advice I saw in the January article was to start engaging yourself in other activities a couple of years before a planned event. And I hadn't actually heard that until I read that article. I thought that was amazing advice.
I think there's a couple variables. I think age and where you are in your life has a big part of what you're going to do after an exit, right? Because if you're 41 years old, for example, it's probably a little early to ride off into the sunset and play golf every day. You're going to get bored of that, I think, pretty quickly, unless you sell for so much money that you can buy a yacht and sail around the world and, keep yourself fully engaged and entertained all the time. But I've noticed that entrepreneurs, particularly those that, start a lot of businesses, have like this drive, this need to start other businesses, right? So Rex, what percentage of clients that maybe exit early from one business, how many of them turn around and just have to start another business? I
think a lot of them do. There's a kind of a taste for the action that you develop. I personally was able to transition into, trying to figure out how to be, one of 30 VPs at 1,000-person company is a interesting new challenge for me. And, now I've got a platform where I can take partner enablement to just such a larger community. So I'm very engaged. I'm 51 years old, for the record. So I've got plenty of life and excitement left in me. And I'm personally just driven to support the community and the channel in almost every decision I make. But I can see, if I had another 10 years on me, that I might be feeling a little bit different. There's that fear. It's like, man, if I retired, would I just, like, would it be the end of my days? Right? Because I wouldn't know what to do if I wasn't engaging my brain.
That would be bored of years.
Yeah. So let me get your opinion, Esteban. So if you were to exit tomorrow, what would you do?
Well, I'm a musician also, and I also like to fly. I like to fly planes. And so I think if I had enough money to do that, I think I would do a little bit of both, music and flying. I like to play golf as well. I like to travel. And so those are things that I probably wouldn't want to do, but I'm 43 years old, and I think as an entrepreneur, I would think about what else could I do. I think Rex is right. I think that we're gluttons for punishment, and we like being in the action. We like being in the trenches. I mean, with Luke, I tell him all the time. Sometimes he'll tell me, no, let me handle all this. You go play golf, and I tell him, no, I want to do the technical stuff. I don't want to lose it. I like fixing stuff. And because for me, what I do is more a hobby than a job. I love what I do, and we both do, and we get paid for it, which is amazing, right? But I think that I would have to do something else. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I think as someone who's kind of entering, this kind of career, there's something about it that is very engaging. And when you're working with clients, you're hands-on, and there is an element that it requires passion. And so I think, in some ways, you almost if you were leaving, there's suddenly all of these relationships that kind of stop. You've gotten to know the businesses that you're working with, the clientele, and so I can imagine that would be really hard. I'm not thinking about my exit strategy, so I'm finding this conversation fascinating to think about. As a 20-somethings, to be wondering, what does the end of my career look like?
Yeah, in my career, I've left 3 companies to join new ones, and not counting C-level to Pax8 because I still have my email address. But the silence was almost deafening without the barrage of emails every day with a brand new mailbox. I remember almost really having a lonely feling and like logging in to make sure my email was still working because I'm not getting anything. And if that's a preview of what retirement looked like, I don't think I want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's true though. I think a lot of people that retire, especially those that were business owners that they sell. I mean, we're dealing with one right now. He built an incredibly big company over here, excuse me. And I guess he's probably in his 70s. And he called me the other day to order 3 laptops because he wants to start another business. And I sat here going, what? And that, then I analyzed it and I'm like, what are you talking about? You'd probably be doing the exact same thing. You'd probably be doing the exact same thing and working until you drop because, if you like to work and you like what you do, like you said, Rex, is almost deafening, when your phone is not going off. Now, sometimes if I go on vacation, now that I have Luke, I can actually take some vacation time and travel a little more. It's weird. I'm calling him, everything okay? Yeah, we're good. We got it. Anything I need to do? Nope, you're good. It's just, it feels weird. So I think retirement is going to be like that for me anyway.
Esteban, it harks back to what you talked about passion. For some people, working is their passion, like operating a business or doing IT work. That a lot of us like get into that business because we're nerds at heart and we love it. Why stop, right?
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, if, with everything, all my hobbies plus, being involved in politics, I could even think about, I could run for office and, make that my full-time job, but it's just not the same. I don't think, it's just, I feel like, I look at how I started my company, right? We started with $0 because I got laid off and I just on the drive home decided to open my company. And I look at it now and what we've been able to build with hard work and dedication and a little bit of a hand of providence. And you just can't fathom letting go of that baby sometimes, and I think that's part of the situation. It's just people letting go of the baby. And I'm sure, Rex, you probably felt that very much when Pax8 was acquiring you and they're making changes to your baby. You're like, what are you doing? That's not how we do this. Don't break what's working. And that's going to be rough.
Yeah, there was a couple non-negotiables, like some things Pax8 had to put in their purchase and sale agreement that they would not change that were important to me. And I'm proud to say it's been almost 9 months now. And all of the coaches are still with us, right? So I hear that's a pretty hard thing to achieve. And so I'm definitely proud of that. I was thinking about a couple of things about what to consider when you're thinking about sort of that retirement or selling the business or what to do afterward. And, here's kind of a couple of questions like to think about to yourself. I'll go ahead and read off a couple of them. What brings you the most joy? What activities do you do that cause you to lose track of time, right? That's something to think about. What things do other people ask you for help with? That's something to think about. What's the other one here? Where have you donated your time in the past, right? That's something to think about. And then here's an interesting one on the list. What makes you angry? And so, these are things to kind of think about as you start prepping for what would you do after the sale of the business.
Dive into that one, Rex. What do you mean? What makes you angry? Why would that influence you?
Well, when I saw that one, that was my first response too. Like, why would that be important to ask? And partly because it might drive you to work on fixing it, was the conclusion I came to. Like, maybe I could do something that resolves this situation, which is difficult for people, right? Like, for me, yeah, with the exit, I personally have money. I don't have to work anymore. I've got enough to fund a retirement, but I'm in the mode where I want to keep serving the community, but at some point, I think I'll transition that to more of a, right now I serve the community. That's how I earn a living, get paid, right? But I might want to transition that to something where it's more giving to the community, where I don't need to get paid to support myself, right? So, and the things I hear about in this industry that make me angry might be a motivator. Like, that's what I should tackle. The legislation that's occurring, starting in Louisiana, that's going to really be affecting the managed services community. I think we're going to, the more and more there's security incidents, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Louisiana has introduced some legislation that you have to register with the state as an MSP. Those kind of things make me a little bit upset. Like, I think I might want to spend some personal time and tackle that one for the community.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the common mistakes that people make while they're either not, a mistake would not be planning at all if you're exiting, but what are some of the mistakes that they make throughout that planning journey that they might want to be aware of and avoid?
I think I'm going to go first with just having a feeling that it'll figure itself out. Getting so caught up in the tyranny of the urgent that I'm just focused on getting the sale done. And then all of a sudden it's done and you're like, oh, now there's money in the bank account, but I don't know what to do, right? Because I don't think it's traveling, and that'll burn through your money too fast probably. So yeah, there should be some of that, but I probably not keeping your spouse in mind, even your extended family. Like, how's this going to affect your relationship with your children? If you just think you're going to go traveling, your grandkids are going to miss you, right? So that's probably a big mistake. The financial aspects, and me personally, I've always been the working guy, and been putting money in the 401k or whatever, but you'd be surprised how many financial advisors contacted me because they want to help me manage this newfound nest egg that wasn't there 8 months ago. I had equity in a company that I was not necessarily, I understood I was building an asset, but I've been trying to do my own retirement planning, not based on that ever becoming a real thing, right? And all of a sudden, I'm not an investor. I'm not a Wall Street person. I don't know what to do with that kind of a portfolio. So I think that's a mistake I made, is not being more prepared on how to manage that.
Luke brought up the issue of building your identity around work and the company you work for, and you were talking, Rex, about the shock of the deafening silence of the empty inbox. Like, a lot of what we're kind of talking about here is it's not like business planning, life planning stuff. It's almost more emotional issues and stress that you can deal with after an exit. Do you have any advice for anybody on preparing themselves for that? Are there things that you can do so that it doesn't kind of blindside you when the time comes?
Well, I think the first one that comes to mind is everybody thinks their businesses are worth more than they're worth. And when they go through the purchase and sale, and they get blindsided by, not being prepared, or having, like, deferred revenue is a big one, where they've got a bunch of cash that they've already taken from clients but haven't delivered services yet. And the new person buying the company wants to says, well, we're going to reduce the price by that amount because we still have to deliver those services that you already cashed the check for. And all of a sudden the valuation is diminished significantly. And, they get kind of emotionally wrapped up in moving forward with the sale, even though it might not leave them with what they thought they were going to get. And all of a sudden, maybe they're a little underfunded for retirement. So that one I've seen come up more times than you might expect.
Should people just kind of reach out to their peers and people who have exited, and just ask them, like, what am I in for here? Like emotionally or otherwise, what is looming out there for me that it just never occurred to me might be an issue. If all I've been thinking is I'm going to get this big pile of money and it's going to be all good. Are there sources of insight like that out there that might reduce the shock a little bit?
Well, I might look at some of the lottery winner statistics, right? Like after, the statistics of just after a couple of years, them being broke is crazy. Also, they get friends come out of the woodwork, right? That they didn't know they had with their hand out. So I think, being prepared a little bit for some of that, how you're going to react to that. The earnout side of the business is the other thing that's on the top of my mind right now. Is I don't have an earnout. The way my deal was structured, I have to stay for a certain amount of time, but my payout is not dependent on the performance of what I sold. But a lot of sellers, in order to get the best valuation, they're willing to accept some risk, right? That's sort of the way your business is valued. Is if you take risk, then you probably get more money if everything works out. If you don't want to take any risk, they're going to give you less cash, right? And so they often stay to protect their investment. But the statistics are almost staggering, where you try to stay at the new company, but you're not used to working for somebody. And ultimately the buyer may decide they just don't want you around. You're more trouble than you're worth. And it's something like 60 or 70% of CEOs that try to stay with the company don't last more than 9 months or something like that. So you might have in your plan that you're going to stay for 2 years with the new firm to protect your investment, but 9 months later, they don't want you around. And that might change your plan quite a bit. So be ready for that.
Or vice versa, because a lot of the times, as you said, those who work for themselves end up having a hard time working for other people. So it sounds like there's a lot of things to think about, and it's a really cool thing. And we're gonna wrap up here because we're out of time. But I think some nice takeaways from this are that people should put some thought into it, especially if you are close to where you would be either coming towards retirement or looking to maybe sell your business off, to actually start thinking about this. A lot of great advice was shared. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you said there's some emotional aspects. I think a lot of it has to do with somebody's ability to change, and human beings are generally not very good at changing or accepting change. So I think people need to look inside themselves and look at like how they've dealt with massive periods of change in their life before, and that'll help guide them to those decisions down the road. So excellent conversation, really cool stuff. Rex, if anybody wants to learn more about you, get in touch with you, ask you more questions about this, where can they go? How can they find you?
Should find me under Rex Frank on LinkedIn, or rfrank at pax8.com. So probably the quickest ways to get me. Very
cool. And we'll have a link to this article that we've been kind of talking about, post exit planning. We'll put that in the show notes here for episode 211, so you can go and check that out. There's a lot more insight and information in there as well. Very, very cool stuff. Big thanks to Rex Frank for coming on. For coming on and joining us. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have Esteban and Luke with us on the other side to kind of wrap up the show and maybe have a little bit of fun. Stick around for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. A great interview, went a little longer than we expected, but lots of really interesting stuff and a lot of stuff that we don't always think about. you think about selling your business, you think about getting a lot of money, but you don't necessarily put a lot of thought in what the heck you're going to do with it after you have it and once it's gone. So, Esteban, anything about that interview you'd like to highlight or point out? Any takeaways?
Absolutely. You know, as the owner of an MSP, it just gave me a lot of things to think about, because I was thinking, gosh, at 43 years old, would I sell my business? What would I do with myself? And I think that was fascinating, how the approach that they have, and then having an entire academy behind that. It's really great and fascinating to help people be able to figure out and navigate those waters.
For sure. Rich, any takeaways?
One thing, because we were chatting with Rex off the air at the conclusion of that interview, and he mentioned that Arlen Sorensen, a familiar name to many people, he's with ConnectWise now, he has recently formed a peer group of people who are post-exit now and are kind of thinking through all these post-exit planning kind of issues. And this was new to me. I don't know the name. I can't direct people to more information about that right now because I hadn't heard about it before, but it does kind of tell you how common an issue that this is out there, and how difficult it can be to think your way through it alone if you're not prepared for it.
For sure. And that's something that everyone should check out as well. Maybe we can find a link to put that in the show notes. It's been a great episode. We're a little long, and I'm coming up into a little bit of a time problem. So we are going to skip 5 questions this week, but I'm sure we'll have Esteban back down the road, and we'll play a game with him, like 5 questions or what would you do? But in the meantime, we are just going to move to close. So Rich, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick idea of what we might have missed this week and what might be coming up next week?
Well, if you want to find out more about stuff you might have missed this week, a great thing to do is go to channelpronetwork.com on Friday, because every Friday our own James Gaskin posts his In Case You Missed It post. This week, we haven't talked about it on the show here, and there's no reason, I suppose, why we should have, but that almost $69 billion with a B dollar purchase of Activision by Microsoft will be something that James is talking about. He is going to talk a little bit about some of those education PCs from other hardware makers that I alluded to before. Our good buddy Carl Palachuk has a new offering called the IT Service Provider University. And we'll tell you a little bit about that. And just today, actually, another little bit of breaking news. The folks at QuickBooks at Intuit introduced a reseller partner program. They had a solution provider program before, but they've now introduced a reseller model, which could be interesting to learn a little bit more about. And then last but not least, James will have a few details for you about a house for sale on the market in Milwaukee that has 4 toilets, not 4 bathrooms, mind you, 4 toilets in one bathroom, no partitions. James will have the explanation for you in this post, and it really won't make a lot of sense, but it is interesting. Looking ahead to next week, another friend of ours, Chris Weiser, is holding his next 7-figure MSP event. That one is live in Phoenix. The Unified Communications folks at Wildix are doing their annual Partner Summit. That is a virtual event. And I can't say who yet, but a vendor with a very familiar name is actually going to change that name next week, and you'll see that in the news.
Ooh, lots of stuff to look forward to. And as far as the bathroom thing, ew is all I'm going to say. That's my comment. Esteban Blanco was our guest host this week with his partner in crime there, Luke. Esteban, great having you on. I hope you had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I hope we get you guys back. And for those who want to maybe connect with you, learn more about you, where can they go? How can they find you?
www.blancoit.com.
Awesome. And are you on the socials as well?
Absolutely. Facebook, Twitter. And
all right.
LinkedIn.
Go and find them there. And it was awesome having you on. And we'll look forward to having you back in the future. With that, channelpronetwork.com is where you should go each and every day to get the latest news, articles, white papers, resources, downloads, everything you need to know in order to make your business more profitable or do business better or keep you on top of what's going on in this crazy, crazy industry we call the IT industry. Subscribe to Channel Pro Weekly everywhere podcasts are found. If you'd like to watch, join us on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and the little bell, and you can see our bright smiley faces each and every week. So make sure you do that. Post a comment, leave a good rating for us if you can. That always helps. And of course, if you are a longtime listener and you like the show, tell a coworker, friend, colleague, tell your pet. I don't know. Tell somebody. tell lots of people. We would appreciate that as well. And with that, we're going to say goodbye for this particular week. We'll be back next week with episode 212 with lots more ahead. We won't want to miss it. So we'll see you all next week. Take care.